been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of night, and we've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run the things we know just ain't right. There's a better life, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain maker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can't feel it, somebody testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can't feel it, somebody testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can't feel it, somebody testify. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom, saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom, saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for me.
Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for me.
Sing a little louder.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Oh, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive.
Raise a hallelujah. Raise a hallelujah. Raise a hallelujah. Raise a hallelujah.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in a darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. Sing this with us. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Hey, we want to welcome everyone who's tuning in to listen a little bit, watch a little bit today. We're so glad that you decided to do that. Obviously, we're in a different surrounding today, John.
Yeah. So a different surrounding. Never been here before. This is a unique setting. Some of you might recognize this.
Well, some of you might recognize us. My good friend Johnny Two Cent over here.
That's right. And this is Sammy Exotic.
Yeah, coming to you live from the local courthouse in a courtroom. And there's a reason for that, and we're going to get to that in just a moment.
That's right.
But
That's
let's
right.
take care of a little bit of business before we go any further.
That's right.
We want you to know that, with everything that's going on, we haven't been able to meet as a congregation, John. I mean, that's been hard.
It's been
really
5
tough.
weeks now.
Yeah, it's been a while. And so, we want to make sure that everybody understands that what we're trying to do is we're trying to do the very best we can to get out as many good, positive messages that we can. And also, we're taking a lot of precautions in getting ready for reopening.
Yeah,
We're excited about that, too.
Yeah. While we're not sure when that will be, we're already having conversations about how to make sure that our facility is in the best shape possible for that return, because it will happen at some point. That's the beautiful part about this thing. At some point, it will end.
It will. It will.
We'll move past this, and so we've got plans for when we return, when that date comes. You won't have to touch a thing.
That's right. And some of the precautionary measures that we're taking is that we're going to social distance our seating in the sanctuary, for example. So it'll be staggered seating where you and your family can worship together. There'll be a one-way in and a one-way out of our facility.
We're going to have people at doors, and so you don't have to touch a door handle at any point.
That's right. And water fountain will be shut down. We'll have bottles of water. You'll be able to get your own communion on the way in.
That's right.
And take it to the service.
One of the biggest things to be aware of when that day comes is for the first couple of weeks, we're not going to be doing children's ministry at church. It'll be family services at our location.
Yeah, and that's for a couple of weeks after we open until we can kind of get everybody acclimated back and figure out. And this is really all contingent on something, John. What's it all contingent on?
It's all contingent on what our local officials direct and encourage moving forward in this. And so we're not, right now we don't know when that will be, but we want to make sure that you are aware that we're having those conversations now so that when we do open, we're ahead of the game.
That's right. And if you can help us communicate that with anyone that might be interested in coming to church, that would be of great benefit. Because the truth is we have some people that really don't have access to this kind of media presentation. So if you could kind of help spread the word and stay alert to our announcements of when that's going to take place. We're hopeful that it's a few weeks down the road, but we don't know for sure.
And one of the best things that you can do right now is as you're watching this video, like and share this video as you watch it right now, and then make sure that you go to our Facebook page and like our Facebook page. That'll be a huge help in enabling us to get the word out to more and more people.
That's right, and we really want to do that the best we can. And I just want to thank everyone for we've had a number of people that have tuned in every week, been loyal and faithful, and it's been exciting. A lot of good comments. We want to hear any prayer requests that you may have. Please send them to us. You can do that through our email or on Facebook page, either one. You can type it in. Now, one of the things, John, that people don't realize is that when we do our weekly podcast, it's kind of a similar situation to this.
Yeah. We sit around a table and talk just like this.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of bring you a message out of God's Word that in this format. And John and I are going to kind of talk about it together, and we're hoping that you will engage in that. And maybe you have a comment during this, and you can go on your Facebook page or our Facebook page and be able to put that down and let us know how you're feeling or whatever questions that you may have.
Yeah, we love reading through and responding to the comments that you put underneath this video, and so make sure you do that. And that's a fun way right now while we have to physically distance ourselves, we can be socially interactive with one another, and that's a great way to do that by making those comments.
Yeah, I'm an expert at that.
I know you are, yeah. Sammy Exotic here. He is up to date with the tech.
I'm up to date with the tech. Well, as you know, since last fall, I've been working way as well as you. Together, we've collaborated, working our way through this thing called the Sermon on the Mount. It was Jesus's really coming out talk of being God's son, and as he was doing that, he was talking to ordinary people like us. And actually, the thing about it is they didn't have COVID-19 back then, but they did have a lot of other problems.
Yeah, like leprosy.
Yeah, like leprosy, for example, and government oppression.
Yeah,
they were
right.
being taxed at an astronomical level that we can't even relate to.
I mean, think about this. They're living in a world that used to be like their country, and now it's ran by another country. And so in some ways, picture it like this. And this is kind of a crazy way to think about it, but we grew up here in Kentucky. Now imagine that Canada is now our government, our ruling force. That wouldn't go over well, right?
So is Shania Twain the queen?
Listen, these boots are made for walking. I don't know. No, that's
She's
not
from
right.
Canada. I don't know.
So, anyway, picture like
Another
this is
country.
your heartland. This is like your home now being ruled by another a foreign country or empire.
Well, that's about our
That'd be a
worst
hard
nightmare,
thing.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And and that's what had happened to the folks there, and so they're being oppressed from a lot of different angles. And when Jesus showed up on the scene, what was interesting about this, at least, is that religion, which was supposed to be God's answer to a lot of the problems that were going on, actually became more of the problem. Yeah. It had become somewhat of a joke in some regards, because it had developed into a bunch of rules and hoops that people had to jump through in order to be connected or be good enough to be connected with God. And the religious leaders weren't doing it any justice.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the religious leaders in Jesus' day, I mean, you think about the high priest in Jesus' day, he wasn't really the high priest as much as he was an elected official.
That's right.
And so it wasn't, religion, this opportunity and this way to connect with God had become a system.
Yeah, yeah. And what happened is a lot of people disqualified themselves because either they were poor or they didn't have the qualifications, or maybe didn't feel religious enough. And so they left that up to certain groups of people, and then they felt disqualified. And when Jesus came on the scene, the thing that he came to show us more than anything, I think, was that everyone now is going to have accessibility to God. Right?
That's one of the reasons I really love our ministry at Leesburg, is because that mentality of disqualifying ourselves is not a foreign thing. Many of us and many of you have felt like that and said, you know what, I don't want anything to do with that churchy type people thing. I mean, we experience this daily, and maybe you are someone who's had that type of opinion. And one of the things that we do at Leesburg is we try to be as real as possible in our personal lives and in our ministry about what's up, and we're not putting on.
Well, sometimes it's really bad, but it's real.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes we find ourselves in the courthouse, right?
Yeah, that's right. In familiar territory. Anyhow, when Jesus first began talking in this famous speech called Sermon on the Mount, found in Matthew chapter 5 through 7, and we're to the end of this. We're going to do this week and next week.
If you have your Bible at home, go on and turn there. Chapter 7 is where we'll be.
Then we're going to be at chapter 7. He has just told them and us that with a little bit of faith, we can do some pretty amazing things. If it's faith in the right thing. Talk about moving mountains and stuff like that. Yeah. And so the approach that Jesus came to give us is the idea of what are you and I going to do today together? It's not God and me here. It's us. That's why Jesus came. We're now connected in a personal relationship, not in a religion, but in a personal relationship. Yeah. And I think that gets overlooked. And this was a foreign message to the people of Jesus' day, certainly. And so he came to show what being actually good looked like. And it didn't look like what people thought it did. It didn't have anything to do with long, flowery prayers and robes and stuff like that. Yeah. It came with an inside-out kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what does that mean to you, John, being changed from the inside out? I mean,
I think largely what Jesus is doing, he's breaking this mold, this idea that this is how you have to be in order to be acceptable. You know, he's changed. He's talking about it's not about what you do; it's about who you are and ultimately whose you are.
That's so big.
And so Jesus has just up, and we see this played out in Jesus' life and ministry, in who he associates with. And the words he says. I mean, think about Jesus and his disciples for just a second. This stood out to me not too long ago. I was reading through Jesus and his disciples say, "Hey, Jesus, teach us how to pray."
Yeah.
Now, these are Jewish guys.
They've been praying all their life.
They've been praying all their life, but clearly there was something different about how Jesus prayed. And Jesus says, well, when you pray, pray like this, Our Father who's in heaven. And while we don't see it in our English translations, the words that he uses there are so specific or so important because they're not the classic Hebrew words that a good Jew would pray. He says, look,
it's intimate.
Yeah, we're breaking down these walls and these barriers. And this relationship that I'm inviting you to have with God through me it is not about a pious posture. Mm-hmm. It's about just being real with the one who made you.
That's right. Well, we're finding ourselves again in Matthew chapter 7, and one of, John, and you know this as well as I do, one of the most misquoted, misapplied passages of Scripture, probably in anything that Jesus said, and that's why we're in a courtroom, because we're looking at judge not, lest you be judged, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And how many times have you heard people
man.
I mean, if they don't know anything about the Bible,
That's
they
right,
know
yeah.
this verse.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, a lot of people, they don't believe a word of the Bible. But they'll,
they know, don't judge me.
This is in my arsenal.
Who
you know
are
what
you
I
to
mean?
judge me, right?
Yeah.
Don't judge. So, you know, the reason that we're sitting where we are is because the truth of it is, and we had this conversation earlier, all of us are about one bad choice from being in a room like this.
That's right.
And so the choices are important.
Yeah.
And how we conduct ourselves, which is why, going back to what you already said is so important, changing us from the inside out. It's not about what we do, it's about who we are, and that affects what we do.
That's right. Yeah, that changes everything. You know, we're all one small bad decision from doing, I mean, it might be
Blowing
something
up our
dumb,
lives. Yeah.
you know, or small, like a speeding ticket, or multiple speeding tickets, as is with some of our staff. But
Courtney.
But it could be something large as well. I mean, one small step away from really wrecking our lives. And while that might look different, we're all guilty of, or potentially guilty of, a serious crime.
Yeah, that's right. And blowing up our lives.
Yeah,
you know,
wrecking
and it never goes away. I mean, consequences, you know, happen. And so we're talking about choices that we're kind of making and how big that is. Chapter 7 is kind of the application of the whole Sermon on the Mount. He kind of gets very practical here and talking about, you know, this change from the inside out. Hey, I want to ask you a question just real quick before I go any further. Did you ever play, we called it Pick One. You might have.
Oh yeah.
What was the name of that game?
Would you rather?
Would you rather? Did you ever
rather?
play that when you were young?
Oh yeah, all the time. I still play it.
Do you have any ones that you can actually say and share that aren't too bad?
Well, I mean, would you rather, you know, kiss your grandma on the lips or kiss your dog on the lips?
Yeah. But that was the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It gets really bad. We're not going to go there.
Yeah.
But and then you'd have to choose, right?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Sometimes you'd have to make choices. And
So hold on.
Okay.
In the comments below, what's your favorite would you rather?
Yeah, I want to hear that. Don't you?
This could be a lot of fun.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What is your favorite would you rather when you're a kid? But here's the question, or here's the thing about that concept, or why I asked that. What you believe dictates the choice that you make, because what you believe is better, you would choose to do. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm heading
Yeah.
with this, because that's what Jesus, I mean, the COVID-19 thing is a perfect example of this. The choices that people are making for protection, or where they'll go, or who they'll be around, or what. And by the way, I just want you to know that we are practicing social distancing. Tell them, John.
Yeah. You've heard that the camera adds 10 pounds. It's true. It also removes 6 feet.
Just keep that in mind moving forward. So
so
anyway,
you know.
so in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 is actually kind of the summary. I'm going to start at the end and we're going to work backwards, but it is the summary. He kind of sums it all up, because he says, here's what I want you to understand. And would you mind reading verse 12 of chapter 7 for me?
Verse 12, it says, so whatever you wish others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets.
So what he's saying is that everything kind of hangs on this one principle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So do unto other people as you would have them do unto you. So with that in mind, I want to back up now, and I want us to look at the first two verses in Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. Do you mind sharing that
Yeah.
as well?
Chapter 7, verse 1, judge not that that you be not judged. For the judgment that you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be used and measured against you.
What does that all mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. Because this verse, again, is one that's often pulled out of the arsenal. And say, well, don't judge me.
Right.
Don't judge me.
Yeah. He says something there about, in the way you're be judged, that the way you judge people, that's the same measuring stick that'll be used to judge you, right?
Yeah.
So there's a warning there about that?
Yeah, and I think, in verse 2, that word judgment, it carries the idea of condemning, right? And so
kind of from a self-righteous piety.
Yeah. There are a couple of different ways that we see judgment today. Judgment is a funny thing because we can judge different things. Like I can judge between sausage pizza and pepperoni pizza and judge which one's better.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a condemning thing. The idea that's being conveyed here is this idea of condemnation, right?
True.
And he kind of plays that out more in the next.
Well, let's read the next 3 through 5.
He says in verse 3, why do you see the speck that's in your brother's eye, but you don't notice the log that's in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there's a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly and take the speck out of your brother's eye.
Now, a lot of people that use this out of context, again, are using it in such a way that they're saying, you just need to mind your own business, right?
Yeah.
Is that what that's the way people are taking it, but that's not the intent here at all.
No, I don't think that's the intent. The idea is the way I judge others, and even it's not bad to condemn things. In fact, we need to condemn things. Right.
I want someone to care enough about me if I'm doing something that's harmful to tell me I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you see me acting in a way that's not good or living in a way that's not good, the most loving thing you can do is correct your brother or sister, and say, hey, dude, Sammy, exotic, listen, you can't be selling baby tigers without a permit. That's against the law.
Watch what pizza
or
you
whatever.
choose.
That's right. Yeah, watch out.
It could be dangerous.
So it's just dangerous.
That's true. So he's saying you got to think about how you look at this or look at life a little bit differently. That's the challenge, I think, of this whole message. And so I think what he's saying here that's important is that you got to be careful about which rules you choose to play your life by. Because that's the same kind of rules that's going to be applied to you. So again, we started it with the end, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I want people to speak into my life and to help me where I'm wrong. The people that I have loved and cherished in my relationships the most are those who cared enough to say, you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that can be a good thing, but, and this is a big key, big but right here.
Big but.
But it's how they chose to speak into my life.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a big deal. And this is where I think religion has missed the boat a little bit, or at least the church has at large. And that is that we've been very condemning rather than trying to be encouraging, because what's the old adage? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, kind of thing. Yeah. And so I think that once they understand how much we care, then maybe people are more apt to listen to some advice or judgment, if you will, that we'll give them on their life.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I think one of the big words there that's used, Jesus says, and I think it's important to hear, this is one of the few times that Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he uses a very specific word here that he usually doesn't use with his disciples. And he says in verse 5, you hypocrite.
Yeah.
This is a sermon directed to his disciples, and he says, you hypocrite. The word hypocrite is pretty much used here the same way we would use it today. The original word is this idea of a play actor, right?
With a mask.
Someone who plays a role. Mm-hmm. He said you can't play a role when it comes to this relationship thing with God. Why would you do something that's more heinous and terrible, and then condemn your brother for doing something that's...
Well, not only do we play that role
small.
with God, we play that role with each other.
Yeah.
You put on your preacher hat or whatever it may be, and the motive maybe isn't that I'm trying to build a relationship or build a bridge. I'm trying to build a wall, in terms of how I relate to this person.
Yeah, or I want to point out your error so that I feel better about mine.
Yeah, that's true.
right?
And we make judgment on mine is not as bad as
That's
hers
right.
or whatever it may be. That's a good point. Here's an interesting verse, though. Look at verse 6, John. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Read this
Yeah.
for us.
Don't give to dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn and attack you.
Now, I talk about the importance of context all the time, and this seems kind of contradictory to what he's kind of just gone through. Let me see. I'm supposed to not judge, but now I'm looking at somebody and saying, you're a pig. And I'm not going to give you what's really important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we need to tear this down a little bit.
Yeah. So this first section he's talking about, don't judge in a way, don't condemn, especially when it's coming from a place of hypocrisy, right? I'm not going to say, Sammy, you shouldn't be smoking meth if I'm smoking meth, right? That's one of the areas there. How can I ignore my issue and not ignore yours? Now, that doesn't mean I shouldn't call you out on it. I should, but I need to be responsible for me before I can be responsible for you. But then now, don't give to dogs what is holy. That seems so. I mean, if this happened in 2020, if Jesus made this statement on his preaching circuit, it would be a soundbite and all over social media.
Yeah.
Because it would be. The connotation there is that this is somewhat of a racially insensitive thing. Talking with some of the Israelites.
Well, that some people aren't worth it, aren't worth the time of day.
Yeah.
I think the best way in putting this in context of what he's saying is, and most of us have a pet. I have a dog, and I know you do too, and several other people have pets. Is if I take gold or pearls or whatever that's very valuable, and I put it in my dog's dish, my dog's going to come in and kind of look up at me and go, Yeah. It's like, or look at me and go, what? And after a period of time, if I do that over and over, even though that's valuable and it's worth something, to the dog, it's not worth anything.
Yeah.
I think what Jesus is trying to convey to us here is that while the gospel, while everything, all the rules and things that God has given us to guide our lives, which are in our best interest, are valuable and important and holy, sometimes that's not where you need to start. Some people need to be fed first.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Have a basic need met. And this is where we get into, you knowing how much I care before you care how much I know kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is all true. What I'm saying is if you go ahead and just start preaching and hammering people with some maybe deep God things or biblical things, they're not able to handle that right off the bat. What they need is some basic help first, maybe, wherever they are. You have to meet them where they are.
I've got 4 women in my life.
Yeah, I'll
Amanda,
pray for you. 2
girls, and our dog. And so I just need a male friend.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. All 3 of those girls would enjoy diamonds. One probably more than the others. But I could put diamonds in our dog's food bowl with food. And here's the thing. She will eat it, but it will add no value to her life. It'll probably constipate her, and we'll have to go to the vet. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not going to be any value in that. I think about this like this. When I was in Las Vegas in college, I did an internship at a church in Las Vegas, and all throughout Las Vegas, at some point you would see someone standing on the street corner protesting, right?
Sure.
And they would be, protesting people or establishments and stuff, and this is wrong and what you're doing is wrong, and all that. Now their message might be right, but it's not being heard, and that's not because it's a bad message, but it's the way that message is shared.
Right. And I think we all know that we listen to people that we have some kind of relationship with, and I think that's a big deal. I think one of the things that we have to realize in this is that in meeting the needs first, I was thinking about, and I heard someone say this years ago, it's like if you went by and you found a baby laying outside and it's laying there and no one is attending to this infant, and you went over to it as a Christian and you looked at the baby and you said, you know what, let's stay right here and pray.
Let's pray.
Let's pray for this baby's warmth. Let's pray for this baby to be fed. One of the things that Jesus is trying to convey, as well as his brother James, who wrote the letter of James, is that faith without works is dead. There are things that go hand in hand. We can look at it, we can be condescendingly judgment by saying, oh, we need to pray for all those people out there, or pray for so-and-so.
Yeah.
And yet we're not actually doing anything to make a difference to feed them what they really need.
Yeah. Why would I listen to this message if you're ignoring the blatant, obvious thing that's lacking in my life?
And that's one of the things we were talking about, how we do ministry at Leesburg. That's one of the things that we do at Leesburg is we try to help meet people's needs. That isn't always their wants, and it isn't to enable them.
Yeah, that's right.
But we try to do things that will help people get their feet on the ground, in practical counsel, advice, financial, whatever it may be, so that they can move forward. Right?
Yeah.
And,
we've got Change for a Dollar every week that we're meeting. We set $1 aside for every individual that comes onto campus, and we turn around and we bless a family organization in our community. And oftentimes we have helped a family and an organization, but we've said, you know what, we want to help you and we love you and we want to help you through this. Here's the thing. We want to help you holistically, and that means we're going to pay this bill, let's say, but we want to partner you up with financial advisors and coach you in how to handle finances appropriately. We don't want to just plug a hole in the ship. We want to fix the ship.
Yeah. John, let me just wrap this up by saying that in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus kind of lands the plane here in verses 7 through 11. And here's what he says. He says, here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Don't waste, the things that are valuable. Meet the right needs. And then he says, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be open unto you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, the door will be open. And then he gives a very practical illustration. He says, you parents, if your children ask for a loaf of bread, do you give them a stone instead? Right? And then he goes on with some further application here. I think that one of the great things that Jesus gave us here is kind of a formula for how we do get involved in people's lives without sounding judgmental.
Yeah.
He's saying, hey, have you asked anybody permission
Yeah.
to actually have input into their lives?
Sure, yeah.
Have you ever, he's obviously talking about a relationship with our Heavenly Father as well, but he's also talking about this horizontal relationship that we have as well as vertical with one another. And he's saying, have you knocked and asked permission to speak into somebody's life, or are you ramming it down their throat?
Yeah.
I can go up and ram.
A battering ram into the door, yeah.
I mean, but that doesn't help anything, right?
But that's usually met with opposition, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that the hard part is the balance between this whole issue. And I've said many times that's the key to Christianity is the balance. Being able to balance truth and grace. Like Jesus did when a woman was thrown down in front of him, caught in the act of adultery. He did not condone her actions. Right. He didn't condemn her as well. He said, go and sin no more. Yeah. And I think that we have to take very seriously this idea and commission that God has given us we're sitting in a courtroom, or a law of the land is represented here. The law of the land is represented here. But we're talking about something amazing that God gave us here, and that is incredible grace. And he's saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You want to receive grace, you got to be willing to give it. That's true with patience and all the other virtues that we have.
Yeah.
Hey, John, good to be with you, buddy.
Hey, thanks. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in.
Guilty, guilty, guilty. Those are words that we all deserve to hear. The truth is that the Bible teaches us from beginning to end that the judgment for sin is death. No matter how good we've tried to be, we are all guilty of sin, of breaking, of knowingly, intentionally breaking God's law. And because of that, we are found guilty. But this time of communion is all about how we are judged free. See, while we deserve death, Communion teaches us that that death, that punishment was placed on Jesus, and Jesus completely. Romans teaches us that he who had no sin became sin so that we might become righteous. And that's what this time of communion is all about. It's a time for us to celebrate and remember the sacrifice that Jesus made on our behalf. While we are guilty, Jesus took our punishment upon himself. And so while at your home you eat the piece of bread that represents Jesus' body and take a drink that represents his blood, may we be reminded of the wonderful sentence that we were pardoned and our punishment was placed upon him.
like the sound of a symphony in my ears. It's like holy water. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. Like the sound of a symphony in my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. Oh, it's like holy water on my skin. Oh, it's like holy water.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.